It feels like we're living in a very strange moment in time where a lot of people don't really want one dream anymore. They want 20. They want to be filmmakers, painters, sculptors, writers, athletes, fashion designers, cafe owners, musicians, runners, CEOs, baristas, actors, all at the same time. And well, at a first glance, it's truly inspiring, right? Very motivating for us. Like, this generation has so much ambition, so much curiosity, so much potential. But if you really sit with it for a second, something about it starts to just feel a little off. It feels incredibly heavy. It feels frantic. It feels like a symptom of something deeper. Because here's the truth that no one really wants to admit is that most people aren't in love with those dreams. They're in love with the idea of wanting them. And I think that's where it starts to get a little messy. Have you ever heard someone say oh yeah, I want to write a book and I want to open a store. I want to start a clothing brand. I want to get into pottery and maybe make films one day. And I've been thinking about running a marathon, and honestly, I might move to a new city and open a cafe. And when you ask, okay, which one are you working on right now? They just kind of blink at you, like you asked something you shouldn't have. It's very odd. It's like naming the dream is enough now. Like, just saying it out loud creates a small version of the life they wish they had. And honestly, I get it, right? Wanting something is safe. Wanting something doesn't embarrass you. Wanting doesn't expose you. Wanting lets you feel interesting, even if nothing really changes. But doing is what makes you vulnerable, right? Like, doing forces you to start from zero. Doing forces you to sit with the uncomfortable truth that maybe you're not naturally good at it. Maybe you will fail, and maybe you'll be disappointed. Wanting is this blanket, right? Doing is a mirror in a way, and everyone is scared of that mirror. And I think that's why this performative, multi-creative trend feels so off. There's something weird. It's just like people talk about their dreams like it's accessories now. Like, you're supposed to collect them. Like, the more dreams you list, the more interesting you appear. Like, saying, I want to do everything automatically makes you someone worth listening to, but it doesn't. It doesn't build your life. It builds this persona. Again, with these personas now, it's just, I don't know. I just think it's getting a little bit much now. And I think that's the key, right? Everything's about identity, and people aren't chasing craft anymore. They're chasing identity. They don't want to be a filmmaker. They want to be someone who feels like a filmmaker when they talk about it. They don't want to be a writer. They want to be the aesthetic of someone who writes in cafes. They don't want to be an athlete. They want to be admired for, their new disciplined arc. They don't want to be an artist. They want to be soft lighting, studio vibes, the latte, the outfits, the playlist. It's not passion. It's all just performance. And well, I need you to hear this part extremely gently because it's real that people are bored. Like, deeply bored. Not, I need a hobby bored. I mean emotionally bored with themselves. Bored with their lives. Bored with who they used to be and who they feel stuck at right now. So listing dreams becomes a way to escape. It becomes this temporary high almost. It becomes a way to feel important for a second. And this is exactly why that viral Instagram rant hits so many people. The guy wasn't listing ambitions, he was listing escape routes. And then he ends with, honestly, I just don't want to run into anyone from high school. That's the real emotion behind it all, though. embarrassment, shame, the desire to outgrow the version of yourself you think everyone remembers you as. But people don't want 20 futures. If you really think about it, they just don't want their past. And I think, what's crazy is that thousands of comments all saying same. Thousands of people relate to that exact feeling. Because so many people feel stuck in lives they didn't choose, stuck in jobs that drain them, stuck in relationships that aren't deep enough, stuck in towns that don't inspire them, stuck in identities that don't feel true. And when someone feels stuck long enough, dreaming becomes this coping. Talking becomes healing. Announcing is performing now. But none of it becomes living. Because I want to tell you something I've learned from seeing this pattern over and over. People don't actually want to be this multidisciplinary creative. They want to feel like their life could be big. They want to feel like they have options. They want to feel like their existence matters. They want to feel like there's still time to become someone they're proud of. And instead of sitting with that pain, they just distract themselves with these fantasies. But fantasies have side effects. Because when you keep switching from dream to dream, you never truly build anything. You never go deep enough to feel the reward of progress. You never push long enough to experience real growth. And you never really get good enough at anything to feel grounded. You stay on the surface of your own life. Living on the surface is what's going to hurt. And this is why so many people feel lost. This is why so many people feel anxious. Everyone has anxiety, right? This is why so many people feel like they're behind. Because when you want everything, you become nothing. And that's the worst part, right? Is that social media makes it completely normal. It makes it look admirable. It makes it look productive. When really, it's avoidance. It's fear wearing the costume of ambition. And you know what else makes this completely worse is that creativity has literally turned into a lifestyle, an aesthetic, right? You don't need to paint to call yourself an artist anymore. You don't need to post a photo of a messy desk. You don't need to write to call yourself a writer. And you don't need to train to call yourself an athlete. So everything becomes this mood. Nothing is truly just discipline. And I feel like that leaves real authentic, passionate, creative people who bleed for their craft. They're starting to feel invisible because while they're up late wrestling with their work, people online are getting attention for pretending to live a life that they genuinely are trying to build. And you feel that, don't you? That frustration, that exhaustion, that why does this feel unfair kind of ache. It's because you care. You actually care about what you do. You're not trying to perform. You're not trying to build something. You're not listing dreams to feel big. You're trying to grow into something real. And watching people cosplay your passion hurts in ways that you don't really get to say out loud. So because, the difference is that people who list 20 dreams want to escape their life. People who chase one dream want to build their life. Wanting is a fantasy. Becoming is a sacrifice. Wanting makes you feel good for a moment. Becoming makes you feel changed forever. That's why this multi-creative identity thing that's going on is extremely hollow. Because it isn't rooted in passion. It's emotional hunger. People want to feel alive, but they don't want to do the thing that actually gives life meaning. So they just talk, right? They imagine, they collect dreams. And meanwhile, the real creatives, the actual builders, thinkers, obsessors, the people who wake up haunted by this one thing that they want, they're forced to watch their passion get turned into a personality trait for people. People who don't actually care about the craft. And honestly, that's the heart of the crisis. Not that people want too many dreams, but that the dreams start to become content, right? That identity becomes this performance, longing becomes a trend, creativity becomes an aesthetic. And that leaves us with a culture full of people who feel inspired, but never truly transform. So motivated, but never really moved. Deep on the internet, but empty in real life. And if you don't talk about this honestly, like completely honestly, this cycle is going to keep repeating. But chapter 2, we're going to go deeper into the consequences, the burnout, the identity confusion, and why this trend is slowly destroying the meaning of ambition. Because trust me, this crisis has a cost. Well, sometimes the truth has to sting just a bit before it actually starts to make sense. So help me process this. Because this whole thing keeps bothering me on a level I just can't ignore anymore. So when did wanting something, just wanting it, become more valuable than actually doing it? When did desire turn into this personality trait, a trend, a brand? When did we start treating dreams like this, like collectibles you pile into your bio to look interesting? For who? Because if you pay attention, you'll notice something strange, that people who actually do things, the real creators, the real makers, the obsessives, they talk less. They share less. They announce less. Their focus is intense. Their bandwidth is limited. Their work takes everything from them. And they don't have the energy to perform their passion for the internet. But the people who talk the most, they're usually doing the least. And I'm not trying to be rude, it's just honest, it's just the truth. Because I feel like my theory is that talking about your dream gives you the same dopamine as working towards it. You're just tricking your brain. It makes you feel like you're already accomplished something just by announcing it. It's like this identity signal. The act of saying you're something gives you the identity boost without the actual craft. In social media, it loves it. It thrives off of this. It rewards it. It multiplies it. It turns it into this whole identity and performance. You can now get followers, validation, praise, even opportunities, money, not for your work, but for your intentions to maybe do the work someday. Do you understand how dangerous that is? Because it rewires what ambition even means. It shifts the rewards, it flips the equation. Instead of work, progress, identity, it becomes identity, validation, no need for work. And when the identity is enough, the action dies. So this is why so many people have 20 dreams but no discipline. They got the reward way too early. They got the praise without the process. And once you get external validation just for dreaming, you start to lose the hunger to become. And honestly, that should scare us. It scares me. Because we're raising a generation of people who feel exhausted from lives that never really started. People who feel burnt out from dreams they only imagined. People who feel overwhelmed by goals they never touched. Isn't that insane? Feeling tired from fantasies. But, that's what happens when wanting becomes a performance. The pressure piles up, even without action. So while the dreamers are drowning in self-inflicted expectations, the real creators are drowning in something else entirely. They're drowning in the noise. So let me tell you what I mean, right? The creative world today isn't oversaturated with real artists, far from it actually. It's oversaturated with people who want the label of an artist or creative. And those are not the same, not even close. A real creator disappears into the work. They get swallowed by it, their ego breaks, their sense of time evaporates, their life bends around their craft. They think about their project in the shower, on the bus, while making dinner, during conversation. It becomes this obsession. They stay up late, they wake up early, they sacrifice comfort, they sacrifice image, they sacrifice being understood. A performative creator disappears the moment the camera stops recording. But online, they look identical. And I think that's where things start to get confusing, because we've entered this era where you can't even tell who's real anymore. The timelines are full of people who look creative, people who dress, creative or unique, people who romanticize creative routines, people who hold cameras they don't use, people who buy sketchbooks they don't fill, people who curate writer's desk without writing a sentence. The internet is full of creative aura and almost no creative substance, and this creates this fog that real creators get lost in. It makes every lane feel crowded. It makes every industry feel full. It makes every dream feel late. You look around and think, oh, there's so many people doing this already. But the truth is that most of them aren't doing anything at all. They're only performing this identity. And I think this has a consequence to it. Because real creators start feeling guilty for being focused. Right? They start to feel insecure for having one person. They start feeling insecure for having one passion. They start feeling boring for being dedicated. They start feeling behind for not doing everything or not being enough almost. But the truth is that mastery is boring. Discipline is repetitive. Commitment is plain. Consistency is boring, So the real work is not aesthetic, it's not cinematic, it's not content friendly. Most of the creative process is, invisible. It looks like failure. It happens when nobody's watching. I think that's why people quit when they finally try it, because they thought it would feel like this magical thing. They thought the vibes would be perfect. They thought it would be so easy, and they thought inspiration would carry them. They didn't realize that most of the work is done in silence, in confusion, frustration, solitude. So they tried once, feel the discomfort, panic, and leave. And then they move to, to the next aesthetic identity, then to the next, and the next. And meanwhile, the real creatives just keep going. We keep building, we keep hurting, keep learning, keep growing, keep sacrificing, and keep doing the same thing that no one really gets to understand and see. But the heartbreaking part is that because everyone performs creativity now, that people can't tell the difference between the ones who practice and the ones who pretend. The internet has no filter for intentions, no filter for effort, no filter for sincerity. And I think that leads to a culture where the loudest people look the most creative. The most aesthetic people look the most dedicated. The most online people look the most serious. And the real artists, the quiet ones, get buried. This is the crisis. It's not just the confusion, not the noise, the aesthetics, but the erasure of real ambition. Because when identity becomes the product, effort becomes irrelevant. Vibes become the metric, discipline becomes invisible. Wanting becomes a brand, and becoming becomes rare. And the saddest part is that people don't even feel like individuals anymore. Everybody's like this walking Pinterest board. Have you ever met someone who's so full of dreams but so empty inside? Like someone who looks creative but feels lost? Someone who romanticizes 20 futures because they can't face the discomfort of choosing one? That's the cultural moment we're in. Everyone is scared to choose, because choosing means we're giving up the fantasy version of yourself. It means sacrificing your illusion of infinite potential. It means stepping off the mood board into your actual real life. So choosing is terrifying, but it's the only thing that actually builds a life. And I think this is why so many people feel anxious all the time. So many people feel overwhelmed by possibilities. So many people feel like they're wasting their life, because when you hold on to 20 dreams, you live in 20 timelines, and none of them are even real. So you can't even build yourself if you're scared to land. But real creators, the ones who end up making something meaningful, they land. They're able to choose. They commit. They become obsessed. They give their life to something, not image. Obsession isn't trendy. Obsession isn't cute. Obsession is the thing that drags you back to the work even when you hate it. It's the very thing that ruins your weekend plans. the thing that makes you forget to eat, keeps you awake, the thing that hurts but hurts right. People don't romanticize obsession because obsession is not a vibe, it's this calling. And everything else, every aesthetic identity, every performative dream, every romanticized fantasy, it's going to fall apart the moment life gets real. It falls apart the moment the camera turns off. It falls apart the moment that the Wi-Fi goes out. So here's the question I think you need to ask yourself, honestly, quietly, and privately, is that, do I want this because I love it, or because it makes me look like someone I want to be? Because one answer leads to a real creative life. The kind that feels like a purpose, the kind that fills your lungs, the kind that builds your identity from the inside out. And the other answer, it just leads a life made out of empty promises, aesthetic moments that never really become anything deeper. So the world has enough performers as it is. But creators, people who actually choose something, people who actually care, people who actually build their own thing, people, we're running out of those. And maybe you're supposed to be one of them.